really glad to be here. I'm really grateful for this opportunity to speak to you guys. Real quick, my thing is I'm a former journalist, spent 15 years doing it for the Associated Press, talk radio, so I really know that side of it really well, and then I've spent the last decade also doing PR, so I know that side really well. So what I'm going to ask you guys today, and obviously Nemo Media Group is my group, and I'm glad to be here. What I'm going to ask you today is who... Bart?
Adrian Peterson.
Where is that? Where is that?
How do you
making sure I'm in the tough room, tough crowd. I give no respect. What I want to ask you today is to take a leap of faith with me. Okay, I want you to take a leap of faith with what I'm going to share with you. I think one of the biggest things I run into when I work with folks in this industry, both when I was at ACA and now as a consultant, is people are just like, why would I want to do PR? Why would I want to get into this? It's crazy. You're nuts. Nemo, no way. It just puts target on my back, all those things. So I'm going to get into it. Why would you do it, right? I mean, the opportunity is you can keep your head in the sand all you want, right? But whether you want to go away or not, the story happens, the broadcast happens, the news report comes out, right? If you don't comment in today's society with the way social media fills that vacuum, the 24/7 kind of cable news world that we live in, you're guilty. You're guilty. And I'm going to show you a couple examples of companies that had that happen to them. Also, a big thing, everyone's talking about the vote upcoming, and if you don't vote, you're not allowed to complain. I feel that way about the collection industry too. If you don't participate, if you don't make any effort to change the perception and to do your own PR, then you can't complain. I mean, because what are you going to do, right? I mean, now, these are my good friends. Who remembers the Dateline NBC report that came out back in 2009 about the collection industry? Anybody? Show of hands.
Is this one Buffalo?
Buffalo! LHR in the house. Real. Okay. So, I'm sitting at my desk one morning in Minneapolis at ACA, your favorite international trade association, and I get this panicked call from Buffalo, New York area code, and it's these guys at LHR, and they go, oh my God, we just saw the Today Show put some hidden camera footage of our collectors on TV. What are we going to do? They're going to broadcast this thing tonight on Dateline. It's this expose. It's going to make us so terrible. And I thought, oh my gosh, they sandbag you. I can't believe a national program would sandbag you guys and just shoot all this hidden footage and not call you or anything, right? They never called you? And he's like, oh no, they've been trying to contact us for 6 weeks. We just haven't returned any calls. First thing I did was I hit my head. The second thing, I covered up the receiver and uttered a few expletives. And then I said, you guys are in big trouble. Okay, the show's going on in about 9 hours. And you haven't commented, and they had this footage for 6 weeks? Well, head in the sand, right? Target on our back. Why would we want to talk to the media? I'm like, the story's going now. What do we want? You guys. And so what I did was I said, the best you can do is we can't get on camera, right? Because I called the Dayline producers and like, sorry, dude, we're going to air. They had 6 weeks. And so I wrote them a letter. I said, you got to write this. Let's pray it goes on air and you got to start calling all your clients right now, damage control, etc. So I'm just going to show you a little snippet via YouTube and bear with me on the audio of what.
Follow the rules. Others, not so much.
When you're starting out, you have to be very a lot more reserved. But once you get in there, once you get promoted and on a team, you can bend the rules a little bit more.
Joe says he walks the line most of the time, but also knows how to cross it with a tactic that sounds like harassment.
One of the things that I like to do, which is pretty nasty though, is that I'll find out where somebody works, and then I'll find out who the owner of their company is, find out their number, and call them at home. I love that. Call the boss at home. That's my favorite thing to do.
And remember how the other LHR collector passed himself off as a military liaison?
He told me he was a military liaison.
He absolutely is. Investigator Dowling.
This collector uses a similar sounding scare tactic.
So do you threaten people with that kind of thing? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
All the time. I'm actually LHR's legal liaison.
And among this group, there seems to be little fear of getting caught.
Are you kind of allowed say what you want kind of thing? Are you given a free rein?
You can't swear, you can't threaten people, but we do every day.
So why would they risk breaking the law and inviting lawsuits like the one filed by the Houstons?
Does the company ever get sued though, like for
We bring in a lot of money, so it's like it's worth it for people still to be illegal and collect money.
LHR didn't respond to our requests for comment, But after seeing some of our hidden camera video, the company said it terminated the employees involved. It called their statements unacceptable and not representative of what they trained their collectors to do.
What I really wanted to take away from this is how good their employees are at hacky sack. Guys working it, or SEPA when I was in college, we called it a SEPA ball. Anyway, a total example of just, you can't have your head in the sand anymore. And I mean, this is a very dramatic national example, but whether you like it or not, you need to have a crisis plan in place, a PR plan in place if this happens to you. And obviously, I wouldn't encourage your employees to drink in the parking lot after work and talk to random strangers with cameras. These guys are still in business. That's the best part. I just pulled this up the other day. Look at, what I love about it is, and I hope nobody here is from LHR, but words like integrity and trust aren't commonly used to describe the receivables industry, but at LHR they define the way we do business, right? Okay, that's a little irony factor, because when I go to Google and look them up, Dateline, consumer complaints, blah, 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 okay? Yeah, rip-off report, stop collector. Is anybody really going to take these guys seriously? If you're a client and I get an RFP from state collection and from LHR and I go on Google, and what am I going to find, right? So again, this is a PR example of why you got to be participating. This is like ripped from the headlines. This happened just last week, okay? In my fine backyard in Minneapolis, Minnesota, there was a collection law firm that had an article posted about them where it was like the worst PR scenario ever. There was a disabled military veteran who claimed that he was abused by a collector verbally, told he's a disgrace to the country, his wife should leave him. What else they said? They said they illegally garnished his wages, etc., etc. So that was a terrible allegation, terrible accusation. What was more terrible was it took the company 4 days to respond. It took them 4 days. And when they responded, they just did one of the lawyered up statements. You know, we are looking into this matter, we take all allegations seriously, like period, end of story. They scrubbed their whole website, they took off any trace of human beings working there. And what it did was, it had no empathy, right? They didn't have any real person involved saying, oh my gosh, if this is true, heads are going to roll. And mine will be the first if it happened on my watch. Or, we're going to look into this immediately, that's a disgrace, we love veterans, we have veterans that have worked for us. They had no response. They just found, it took them 4 days to find a good lawyer in the Twin Cities, which, you know, I know enough lawyers, I could have gotten one quicker than that. Their second response took 10 days. They finally had a detailed response, and do you know what it was? The allegations aren't true. Does anybody get to know that? After 10 days, it's gone. Gone, baby, gone. Media's on to the next story, right? It should not take you 10 days to look into this allegation. And what they found was, not to get too far into the weeds, what they found was they had no record of the call. The call that guy claimed happened. They taped, like most agencies, taped every call, every number. They had no call. The guy amended his lawsuit to take out all the salacious allegations after the story's hit. But it's too late. It took 10 days. So as my friend,
Be serious, man. You cannot be serious.
that's what I wanted to say, to quote John McEnroe in Wimbledon with the big afro hair. You can't see it. I'm sorry for the quality of the videos, but you can't be serious. You can't be doing that. This is 2012, right? The media moves at lightning speed, okay? So that's really just driving home why we need to be involved. Now, some benefits, right? It's all not doom and gloom and worst case scenario, bomb shelter type stuff. There are major benefits, obviously, to doing PR. I think the biggest one is you can use that to really establish that expert status with clients and prospects, right? We're the go-to source for healthcare collections, education receivables. We've been featured in the New York Times talking about that, whatever it might be. Plus, think of the third-party validation you get with advertising versus mainstream media coverage. If you were to go on the Madison News or Milwaukee or wherever it might be and buy an ad, a 30-second, 60-second ad for your collection agency promoting what you do well, what you're an expert in, $5,000, $15,000 depending, newspaper ad. In the Minneapolis Star Tribune, a full-paper newspaper ad, full-page ad, $50,000 on a Sunday. Okay, to get a story on the evening news that's a news story about you and is positive in nature and stuff, completely free, right? Or to get a newspaper story on a Sunday in the Journal Sentinel or the Star Tribune, completely free. Plus, it's third-party validation. It's not an advertisement. People tune out advertisements. They don't tune out news stories. That's another benefit. And then you take all that and you go and you show it to your clients and your prospects, and it becomes part of your marketing materials and part of your story, right? The bonus, and I'll get into this more tomorrow when I do the social media talk, is search engine optimization value. Everything's online nowadays. So when the media creates a story about you, whether it's a TV news report, newspaper report, whatever, it's online, it links to your agency or it mentions your name. So when clients and prospects have competing agencies on an RFP, they go on Google, you're going to show up with these positive news stories. So let me just make a quick question here. How many of you guys, by a show of hands, have used the Yellow Pages in the last 6 months for anything, to look up a business?
Electronic.
Yeah, one. How many of you have used Google in the last 6 months to look up anything? Okay. Your clients, your prospects are doing the same thing. That's a little teaser for tomorrow. Come back. Come back tomorrow morning, bright and early. 8 a.m. I think I'm on. How can you guys take this and use it for legislation and lobbying, right? Because you guys just got out of a big session with that. I'll give you a 3-step process. My good friend Pat Morris is here, ACA in the house. Let's give it up for ACA. Right? Keeping it real, Patrick. Okay. They have this great sheet for you guys. State, literally, I mean, they've got, I don't know what, it was the PwC report when I was there. It's a different one now. But it shows all the stats, right? The benefit to the state economy, all that, right? You take that, you take the positive PR that you're getting as an agency, and most importantly, you take the real human beings that work at your agency into your legislative and lobbying efforts. That's a trifecta. That's a winning combination, right? You've got the stats to prove that you matter to that legislator's district, to the state, depending on who you're doing lobbying with. You've got positive PR from your community, from your city, showing the value that your business brings. And then most important, you've got real people, voters, that you can show them, either in person or through video. Oh, Ask Dr. Det. How many of you know about Ask Dr. Det? Okay. I want to just give an example of how Ask Dr. Det did this legislatively for ACA at the time. This is back 0809. It was in my boss's office, and I remember she was saying at the time, it was Roseanne Anderson, and she was saying, we need something catchy, something like Got Milk, or Got Det, or Doctors, solve a problem. Doctor Det. And that was the beginning of it. It was that simple. And what we did was we took it and we turned it into a big national PR campaign, and it's still going. It's still working really well. Okay, and I'm going to just show you a quick video, and hopefully it'll show up well enough, of some of the benefits that it brought us, not only from a public relations standpoint nationally, but also locally and regionally. We had over 25 members around the country do local PR, where it mentioned their agency, their firm, in their local markets.
On April 15, 2009, the ACA International Education Foundation launched a brand new, completely free consumer education website called Ask Dr. Det. Created as an online version of Dear Abby for consumers with credit and debt questions, Ask Dr. Det is a fast, free, and friendly online resource for anyone in search of credit and debt solutions. Thanks to the tireless efforts of numerous ACA International members, Ask Dr. Det has quickly become the most successful public relations campaign in the association's 70-year history. With more than 24 ACA members leading the way, Ask Dr. Det has turned into a hit on television and talk radio stations all across the United States. ACA members from San Francisco to New York City have taken to the airwaves to share the positive message of Ask Dr. Det. Ask Dr. Debt continues to grow, blazing an unprecedented trail of positive media coverage for the credit and collection industry. For instance, due to the growing demand from Spanish-speaking consumers and the television and radio stations they listen to, the Ask Dr. Debt website is now being translated into Spanish. Also, the U.S. government's General Services Administration wants to notify consumers about Ask Dr. Debt through its Federal Citizen Information Center's print and online resources. Finally, and perhaps most important, the Federal Trade Commission and other legislative entities have taken note of Ask Dr. Debt's success, contacting ACA to offer their congratulations and positive feedback regarding the site. Dr. Debt is a once-in-a-generation chance to change the negative and untrue stereotypes about the credit and collection industry. We hope you'll join your fellow ACA members in helping us continue to tell our side of the story through Ask Dr. Debt.
I'll spare you the national tour, although it was fun. We were all over the country. We were on Fox News, ABC News Now, ABC Radio. Again, it was a huge opportunity, and it's something that you can still use that model today. Okay, this is the next section I want to get into is leverage, right? Reporting on the reporter. The fact that when you go to reporters now, they need something unusual, right? I mean, and this is a huge advantage for members of our industry, the debt collection industry. Because what's the typical story about debt collection agencies? Anyone?
We're all evil.
You're all evil. What else?
Abusive.
Abusive? What else? Complaints, right? Trouble. Okay. So what I do and what I've seen work time and again, it's like catnip to journalists. They're like, meow, meow. I mean, it's really easy. PR is not hard. You flip it upside down, right? Oh my God, we have a collection agency that only gets one complaint a month, according to this FTC data that Inside ARM has analyzed, right? We've got collection agencies where consumers actually thank debt collectors, send in letters, bring flowers. We've got happy employees. We've got nice guy debt collectors, you know, soccer moms, single parents, college students. How many of you guys have those type of things going on at your agencies? How many of you ever told the media about that ever? Nobody has, right? I mean, these are great stories because they're totally opposite of the normal narrative with debt collection agencies. As a reporter, that gets my radar up, that gets my antenna up. So there's no reason you can't tell these stories. And the beautiful part about it is, it's easy for you because you're living it, you're doing it. It's not going to be like you have to make something up and put a big campaign together. You just have to tell your story. And I think in the era we live in, the environment we live in, it's never been easier to do that. It's just a matter, again, of going back to that first slide, not Brett Favre, although I like that slide, but the slide of taking a leap of faith and just taking a shot at this. So keep that in mind. I mean, basically, we know the reality of what goes on in collection agencies, the ones that operate the right way, not the ones that get all the attention, but nobody's telling that story. When you start telling those stories, and I see it time and again, it flips it upside down, it gets tons of positive publicity, and the reality is I can tell you guys from having traveled the country, working at ACA, very few members are doing this. So the ones that do this get the attention, get the publicity, right? Once all the agencies, do this, then it's no longer unusual. Then it becomes a different narrative. But for now, it's a huge competitive advantage. It is. Yeah, I have this client in Omaha, Nebraska that does a great job that had a frivolous consumer attorney lawsuit that drained them for so long. They fought every case, won every case, legal fees were so high, et cetera, et cetera. Their insurance threatened to drop them. I get that. Here's the rub. They didn't even do any PR. They're going to come and get you anyway. They're going to come and find you, right? All it takes is one upset consumer who sees an ad from Peter Berry or one of the other guys is going to come after you. My take on that is the consumer attorneys are going to come after you no matter what. And yes, by having a higher profile, you might be inviting more criticism. But it's, again, the leap of faith, the risk-reward involved. I think you're going to get a much bigger payoff in new business, clients, prospects, positive reputation to offset the legal risks. The clients I work with that I've seen have amazing success, people I haven't worked with that have had amazing success, haven't come back to me and said, oh my gosh, we're just getting inundated with lawsuits. Consumer attorneys, predators are after us. It's kind of a boogeyman thing to a degree. Yeah, they're going to come get you, but how many agencies are there in the country? 5,000? More? There's plenty of agencies for them to chase. You know, you might be a good target, but only if they get money out of you, right? There's a deeper issue there about how much you're going to defend legally versus how much you're going to just say that's a cost of doing business, the FDCPA lawsuits, all those things. So, yeah, I mean, it's a good point. It's something you have to weigh. I mean, it depends on the culture of your agency, frankly. Are you willing to be a little bit more of a risk taker, or are you willing to, you want to just try to do a lot of business and get a lot of clients but not get any attention? Because it's very difficult to do both. This is a fun clip. Reporting on the reporter, and this was kind of the name of the session and the whole idea behind it. And this plays into the whole risk-averse thing and how can I know the media is not going to screw me over, right, and do a really negative story. And frankly, when I graduated journalism school back in the 90s, that's how it was, right? I mean, I had the power as a reporter with the Associated Press to write whatever I wanted about you. We might have an hour conversation, and I might take one sentence out and put that on my story, and that's the only ink you get. And whether that was fair or not, that was the story, right? If Dayline NBC came to do a TV interview, there was no way that you could hire a television studio to come in and film it and broadcast it to millions of people. You can now. You know what that is? It's called YouTube. Does anybody have an iPhone on them? Can you hold it up? You know what that is right there, sir? That's a portable television studio. Did you know that? You've got a built-in HD camera. You got the 5?
Oh, this is a little one.
Okay, well, we can still see it. It'll still be YouTube quality. Right? You've got the power now to report on the reporter. Okay? This is a perfect example. Say you have a controversial story that they're looking for comment from you for, right? And you're nervous about that. Well, the two alternatives are either no comment, you know, duck and run, put your head down, we'll just take the blows and then come out of it later, right? The other alternative is to try to comment on the story. Because again, the story's happening whether you want it to or not. What if, you know, when the reporter comes, you have a camera set up, an iPad, iPhone, whatever, and you say, you know what, just to cover our bases, not that we're worried about your fine television station or publication, you know, skewing the facts or slanting the story, but we're just for our own records, we're going to take the interview as well. And that way we'll have something if we feel the interview was taken out of context or we were, you know, taken in a wrong light as far as our comments, we'll be able to show that to our clients, our prospects, our audience to tell our side of the story. And that's going to do two things to the reporter. It's going to piss them off, and it's going to make them be overly fair to you. And it's controversial, and I wouldn't recommend doing it every time, but there are certain instances where it's a good play because you now have the ability to tell your story, right? The biggest complaint I used to get when I was at ACA in 08-09 was, you know, I agreed to that interview, but they made me look bad. It wasn't true. You know, you took that sentence out of context. Well, what if you could have a video up on your website 2 minutes after the story ran, you know, when people come to see or Google you or whatever and say, no, this is the context. Here's the conversation. Here's how the reporter baited me. You know, here's how he acted. He acted like a buffoon in the interview. He was trying to get me to be emotional. Think about that power. You guys, this requires a little bit of outside the box behavior. So if you're kind of risk averse, and I mean, I get that, but this is how I roll. I mean, this is the advantages you have in 2012. This is an example. How many people here like Fox News? Okay, you're going to hate this clip, so I apologize in advance. This is a great example, and I want you to take all the politics out of it. Okay, you got to just take your political stuff and put it on the side, because this is a PR example. This is a Fox News guy from the Greta Van Susteren show going to interview an Occupy Wall Street guy, right? And the Occupy guy felt like, well, you know, it's Fox News, we're going to slant it their way. So he had a friend taping the interview. Well, what ended up happening was the Occupy guy was so on fire in the interview and just throwing out such great one-liners of content that the YouTube video they put up got more views and more attention than the Fox News story did. Right? They reported on the reporter, and they got better attention out of it. They actually used Fox News platform against them. So I want you to watch this as an example of...
Jesse, so Ray, your partner here, colleague,
comrade,
she got, seen the protests in Greece and Europe elsewhere. Did you guys take your cue from that? Are you hoping to incite, certainly what was a lot of attention, if not police activity. I know over the weekend there was over 100 arrests, and you guys got things fired up. Are you taking your cues to the international movement? How do you want to see this in? What do you, if you could have it in a perfect way, how would it be?
Well, I don't know. It's really difficult to kind of answer questions leading to those conclusions. I'd say that we didn't take our cue off of anybody, really. It became a more spontaneous movement. As far as seeing this end, I wouldn't like to see it end. I think I'd like to see the conversation continue. This is what we should have been talking about after 2008 when the economy collapsed. We basically patched a hole on the tire and said, yeah, let the car keep rolling. Unfortunately, it's fun to talk to the propaganda machine in the media, especially conservative-leaning networks such as yourself, because we find that we can't get conversations on the Department of Justice's ongoing investigation of News Corporation, for which you are an employee, but we can certainly ask questions like, you know, why are the poor engaging in class warfare? Now, after 30 years of having our living standards decrease while the wealthiest 1% have had it better than ever, I think it's time for maybe, I don't know, some participation in our democracy that isn't funded by news cameras and gentlemen such as yourself.
Okay, but let me give you this challenge, Jesse.
Sure.
We're here giving you an opportunity on the record with Creative Ancestry to put any message you want out there, give you fair coverage, and I'm not going to in any way be biased about it. So there is an exception to the case because you wouldn't be able to get your message out without us, yes?
No, certainly. I mean, take for instance when Glenn Beck was doing his protest and he called the president a person who hates white people and white culture. That was a low moment in Americans' history, and you guys kind of had a big part in it. So I'm glad to see you coming around and kind of paying attention what the other 99% of Americans are paying attention to, as opposed to the far-right fringe who would love to just destroy the middle class entirely.
All right, fair enough. You have a voice of important reason to criticize myself, my company, and anyone else. But let me ask you this. In fairness, does this administration, or President Obama, have any criticism as to the financial situation in countries in there?
I think myself, as well as many other people, would like to see a little bit more economic justice or social justice, Jesus stuff, as far as feeding the poor, health care for the sick. You know, I find it really entertaining that people like to hold the Bill of Rights up while they're screaming at gay soldiers, but they just can't wrap their heads around the idea that a for-profit healthcare system doesn't work. So let's just look at it like this. If we want the president to do more, let's talk to him on a level that actually reaches people, instead of asking for his birth certificate and wasting time with total nonsense like cilantro.
One of the other elements as far as how to do effective PR, is we've got to humanize our industry and our agencies, right? We've got to humanize. So put your employees out front, right? I mean, typically, the biggest mistake I see collection agencies making is you're putting out written statements or one stiff executive in a suit, right? Use your real people. When you do that, you have amazing power. This is an example from this Omaha agency where they won one of those, again, the hypnotic, you're all getting sleepy, the cookies are feeling even better. Okay. This is an example, and hopefully it'll play here in a second. I'm going to pause it while it loads. But they won one of those best places to work in collections. Any of you guys ever won one of those inside Arm? Right? Okay. They decided to do a video press release where they basically showed their workers, basically showed what the workplace culture is like, and they featured the real collectors. And so when they sent it out to the media and did a press release, it wasn't just collection agency XYZ won this award, insert quote from CEO, it was the real employees talking about, yeah, it's great to work here.
And one of the questions that's asked is, why do you stay here? And 75% of those people who we interviewed said because of the culture. And then, of course, that helps with retention, which saves us money, costs on hiring, training.
The owners are like none other. They're very much involved in our lives. They want to know about us. They want to be involved in who we are, and not only personally but professionally.
They very much stress ethics, and I really appreciate that, knowing that I have a company that I can trust and that trusts me back.
The person you're talking to on the other end of the phone, they have to feel that trust in order for you to be able to help them. If you come to work keeping those three core values in mind, always be honest, always strive for continuous improvement, always treat everybody with dignity and respect, you will by default fulfill our mission of enhancing the financial well-being of others.
The collection industry tends to have a bad reputation, and that's simply not who we are. It's not who I am. It's not who General Service Bureau is. We're very compassionate, caring. Our intention is to help everyone that we work with here, and that completely portrays to who I am on a personal level.
You can do things differently, and it has a huge payback. Not just for the clients, obviously their bottom line, but ours too. And that differently is the way you're supposed to be doing it, and that's the right way.
This is an example, again, where they really wanted to humanize this award. And so what they do is, they made the video, sent it to the media, but they also sent it to clients and prospects. Again, because think about how we do business. We do business face to face. I mean, ever since the first couple of cavemen were fighting over dinosaur bones, negotiating, that's how we've done business. I want to kind of wrap up with some quick tips about engaging, right? I mean, we can't do a full media training session right now, but when you do engage with reporters, I think the first thing is, before you approach them to tell your story, you want to listen online, right? You want to listen to what's going on. What does that outlet typically report on? What do they typically kind of cover, etc.? And when you do a pitch, it needs to be short and sweet. Email is the best way to pitch, okay? Not like written, faxed press releases, not phone calls, just a short, sweet email. And if you do an email, the most important thing is the subject line. Just like a sales email, I would tell you the same thing. The most important subject line of your sales emails, the most important thing is the subject line. And so, the other big part of it is to think like a reporter and know the medium. Go back to Dr. Debt. What I did to get us on Fox News was, I didn't know anyone there, and I was just some guy at ACA in my office, right? And I just knew enough as a former reporter of, we've got a good thing here. We can sell it like Dear Abby for consumers with credit and debt questions. We can have a debt expert on. You can have your viewers participate by sending in questions, and we'll put them on the screen and answer. And so I wrote all this out, sent it to a Fox News producer, and I got a call in 10 minutes. That never happens. First of all, I've been doing this for 15 years. It was kind of lightning in a bottle, but it was the right timing. I knew the medium. It was the height of the recession, so they were desperate for something new and different about the economy and how to help people with debt. And the producer called me, and I'll never forget, her name was Jenna, and she was a Southern gal. Like, that's the best pitch I've ever gotten. That was amazing. It was like you knew our segment. I'm like, exactly. I tried to create a segment for you. The biggest tip I can give you for doing good PR is do the reporter's job for them. As a former reporter, I can tell you, reporters are super busy, stressed, lazy. If you can do their job for them and create a really good story, they'll run it, right? I mean, and that's a free, easy PR. Again, to go back to the earlier slides. Now, when you get to the actual interview, right? Biggest things, think about talking in sound bites, right? Jargon is death with reporters and anyone. And it's so easy when we live in the bubble of the collection industry. Everything is receivables this and whatever other words we want to use. No, it's debt collection. It's not accounts receivable. Like most reporters won't know what that is. You have to think about it as a conversational thing like you'd have with your next door neighbor who knows nothing about what you do. Those are the most successful interviews that I see. Is people who are conversational, down to earth, again, being honest, humanizing it, using real people. I think that's a big thing. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate your time.